We will move on to another session. So this is going to be actually a presentation before we have our very last panel. So this presentation will be given by Alex Chiriac from Quant, who will talk about unified ledgers. So Alex, the floor is yours. Thank you so much.
Yes, first of all, just a little mic check. Can everybody hear me okay?
Perfect.
Awesome. All right. I'm going to start sharing my screen and hope everybody has had a great day so far. I'm currently traveling on the West Coast, so I just woke up. Haven't even had my coffee. But yeah, really exciting to share what we've done on the regulated liability network with you and a bit about unified ledgers. So without further ado, let me share my screen. Okay, can everybody see the presentation?
Yeah.
Cool. So yeah, today we're going to talk about unified ledgers within regulated liability networks. So I would ask you all to note down your questions and save them for the end. We only have about 15 minutes for the presentation and then 5 minutes for questions. So if you save them till the end, I'll make it most efficient and just make sure we don't overrun. So just a little bit about myself. I'm mostly working in architecture and development. I've been working at Quant for the past 7 years, mainly working on Overledger and architecting it. We've done projects with the Bank of England and the Bank of International Settlements on retail central bank digital currencies. We've done the regulated liability network with UK Finance. And something I'm also fond of is contributing to the IETF on their secure asset transfer protocol. So we're working on finalizing the draft for that. And the content of the presentation today is going to be a bit about RLN, the Regulated Liability Network, forms of money and systems involved in that project, the architecture, the debate about the shared ledger approach, unified ledgers, and some conclusions. So first, the Regulated Liability Network, what is it really? This consortium of banks and financial institutions from the UK have come together to require us to build a platform where they can innovate. So use various forms of money across various systems interoperably. I've heard you've had an, I saw you have an interoperability. You had an interoperability panel earlier. So this is exactly that. So they called it a platform for innovation. They called it a financial markets infrastructure. What it was in practice was an API for interacting with different forms of money. And by forms of money, we mean commercial bank money through the UK's open banking API specification. So this is your regular tokenized money that you, well, not tokenized, your cash deposits that you have on your banking apps and so on and so forth. Cash deposits tokenized on the blockchain. So this is something a bit newer. We had retail central bank digital currencies through Project Rosalind, so the project that the Bank of International Settlements and the Bank of England commissioned. We also had retail central bank digital currencies on the RLN shared ledger. So this was another variant of CBDC, but on a different ledger. Wholesale central bank digital currencies. So this is for business to business transactions. And we also had central bank money on the real-time gross settlement systems, so on RTGS. So you can see a lot of forms of money involved in this. And of course, with all those forms of money, you can imagine a lot of systems were involved as well. So UK's open banking, a shared ledger based on Corda from R3. We also had the Project Rosalind, which was an Ethereum-based network or a Hyperledger Fabric-based network. We had a simulator for the real-time gross settlement system. and yeah, a lot of other ledgers in use cases and proof of concepts built on top of the APIs as well. So just a bit about the architecture. This is, of course, an oversimplified diagram, but just to give you a picture of what was involved. You had the RLN API at the top, so business applications, consumer applications would talk to that. And then we had this orchestration layer. So this orchestration layer was built in an extensible manner so that you could, with a workflow engine, so that once you add something on the underlying ledgers, you could easily access that through RLN orchestration as well. On the left side, you had Overledger. So this is Quant's product for interoperability. So talking to legacy systems like UK open banking, as well as blockchain systems like or distributed ledger technologies like the shared ledger from R3, where we had different forms of money, the wholesale CBDC, retail CBDC, and tokenized deposits. We also had Project Rosalind as well, and the RTGS simulator. And yeah, the applications would talk to RLN, and they would interact with either one or multiple forms of money on the underlying systems seamlessly. So with building RLN, there was an intensive design sprint at the beginning of the project, and we had quite a lot of participants. So NatWest, Barclays, Citi, HSBC, Santander, Lloyd, Visa, and a couple others. Most of the big financial institutions in the UK. And as you can imagine, when you have 6 engineers in a room, you have 7 different opinions about how to build things. So we had a debate about how we can build this shared ledger that RLN is based on. So one idea was multiple specific purpose ledgers. So you would have specific ledgers for the wholesale CBDC, another ledger for the retail CBDC, another ledger for the tokenized deposits, and also multiple asset ledgers depending on the business. The other option was to have a unified ledger. So assets and cash would move on the same ledger, enabling granular atomic swaps and programmability of business flows. But there are some drawbacks with this, mainly the technology vendor lock-in and also regulation. So on the different sides of the debate, the question was, okay, we can go all the way, turn the page, and build everything from scratch and build this unified ledger that would have all the bells and whistles, enable programmability at a very granular level on all the different asset classes. So you'd have cash, commodities, and all sorts of financial instruments. But we also had to keep it grounded in the current regulations. So we had to make some compromises as well. But what I wanted to get to is that, are these really mutually exclusive scenarios? Do we have to choose between a unified ledger or just multiple specific purpose ledgers? Well, not really. We could have unified ledgers and specific purpose ledgers peacefully coexist. And you don't even need them to be on the same technology. One could be Ethereum, one could be Corda, another one could be Hyperledger Fabric or Cosmos, Polkadot, whatever the use case and businesses require. And RLN is a great example of this. So we had the Project Rosalind ledger, which was, as I mentioned, an Ethereum ledger or Hyperledger Fabric ledger, depending on which version of the project you interacted with. And then you also had the shared ledger where we had multiple cash forms or forms of money, the retail CBDC, WCBDC, and tokenized deposits. And then you also had the bond tokenization ledger, which was a use case that was built on top of RLN and studied. So you can see here, you had 2 specific purpose ledgers, the Project Rosalind one and the bond tokenization one. And then you had almost, you could say, the beginning of a unified ledger within the shared ledger of RLN. And there was no reason why you couldn't tokenize assets from, for example, the bond tokenization ledger on the original shared ledger, should you wish to do so. The technologies allow for that today. You could take the bond from another ledger and just tokenize it on a different ledger, and you could use various different protocols to do that. And yeah, the conclusion is extensibility. We should strive to build systems in an extensible manner so that they can evolve along with the business needs. And even tokenized deposits themselves are a good example of this concept. So with the tokenized cash deposits from the commercial banks, we studied them in two ways during the RLN experimentation phase. So one was, okay, we can directly issue tokenized deposits. So when a customer comes with their money and they want to deposit it in a bank, you could tokenize it directly on the blockchain. Another option would be to use the current systems that we have, so the traditional banking ledgers, and then once the need arises for that customer, they can tokenize it on the blockchain afterwards. So that would be indirect tokenized deposits. And essentially, what was once a form of money or an asset on a legacy system becomes tokenized on a unified ledger very easily. And if you can do that with cash, it's very, let's say, you could take that concept and apply it to all sorts of assets. And yeah, that's about it. I think we're a bit early, but this is a great opportunity for questions. So if anybody has anything they'd like to ask, feel free to do so now.
Great. Thank you so much, Alex. I believe there is a question actually for you. How far?
Yes, I cannot see the chat at the moment. So
So the question is from Jerome Pons. Thank you, Alex, for sharing. How far Overledger RLN orchestration and RLN API are standardized, for example, at ISO or open sourced?
okay, yes, very good question. So the RLN APIs themselves are RESTful. So you could say that we follow industry practices to build RESTful APIs, and that way it's already a good layer of standardization. And then for the ISO, Overledger follows ISO TC 307, so the main blockchain standardization standard. And then for swapping assets across ledgers, we also use the secure asset transfer protocol from the ITF, which is currently being drafted. Great questions. Yeah. This is something that we strive for during the design phase of RLN as well. So rather than reinventing the wheel on all the different needs that we had, we wanted to use standards that are already in place. And of course, when you have such a big consortium of financial institutions that are very, very risk averse, they do prefer the standardized approaches and the tried and tested ways of building things.
Perfect.
Any other questions?
Any other questions? And if not?
Yeah, if I may.
Yep.
Yeah, salute, Alex. Where can we find or access the deck that you've presented?
I can share it with Bara, and I guess she can forward it to whoever is interested. Would that work?
Perfect. Yeah, I hope so. Bara?
Absolutely. Yeah.
Perfect. And I'll ask more of a question. What sort of issues did you encountered with all those traditional finance and regulatory representatives when implementing the frameworks?
I guess the biggest issue is that the legal work stream was a bit disconnected from the technical work stream. On the technical side, it was like, oh, let's do everything. Let's try to be as innovative as possible. And then we had some people that would have to ground us in a reality. And that's why we had to reach some of these compromises that we've made. in the UK, at least, we couldn't go straight away to a full unified ledger with all the assets on it. And the safest way to have something that would reach the light of day and have the regulators not be too averse to it was built on top of existing stuff. So open banking, which is a current standard in the UK, was a heavy feature of the project. And the way that we built it was try to create direct tokenized deposits, right, on the blockchain, but also indirect. So take what is currently on open banking and tokenize it on the blockchain. And that would allow regulators to see different examples of this working in practice and choose which would be the most sensible. So yeah, I would say the biggest challenge is trying to fit within the current legal streams, but also trying to persuade policymakers that, you know, this is good, this will enable innovation, this will drive things forward, and lead towards a more efficient ecosystem in payments and assets.
Thank you. There are two more other questions. I would let Bara to present them as well.
Thank you so much. So Alex, we have another question. How do you ensure that your cryptographic protocols remain secure against advancements in quantum computing?
That's a that's a good question, and I think it's above my area of knowledge, to be honest. What I can say is that the shared ledger that was based on the Corda distributed ledger technology would be operated by a consortium of UK banks. So I imagine with the funds they have available, they would try to protect themselves at all, pretty much at all costs. And with all the security experts involved in those banks, in that consortium, it would be something high on their radar. But I wouldn't be able to tell you the answer myself.
No worries. Thank you for the answer. We have one more question. How far off are we on implementations or live use cases built on top of RLN?
Great question. So a couple of weeks ago, in the middle of November, we had the RLN hackathon. So we had about 20 different teams from the industry participating, and they were building applications on top of RLN. So we had some great use cases that were showcased using the RLN APIs to build new things. And that was, you could say, a sign that things are moving quickly. Everybody was saying that the RLN APIs did have that they were easy to use because of the REST standards that were used, and the shared ledger, the unified ledger, was easy to work with. So now it really depends on the consortium, on UK Finance, to drive things forward. I think they've proven what they had to prove with the RLN experimentation phase. And from what I'm seeing, things are moving quickly. There is a push to get this to production.
Great. Thank you so much, Alex.
All right.
That's all the questions. Thank you. Thank you for giving us the presentation. Thank you for participating at the event.